The night sky over New York City was unusually clear, the stars twinkling like tiny diamonds scattered across a black velvet canvas. People stopped in their tracks, craning their necks upward, their breaths catching in their throats. A massive shadow began to blot out the constellations, creeping slowly across the heavens until it loomed directly above the city. It wasn't a cloud or an eclipse, it was something far bigger, far stranger. Ryan Carter stood on the rooftop of his apartment building, his hands gripping the cold metal railing as he stared up at the monstrous shape hovering in the sky. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind raced even faster. As an astrophysicist working for NASA, Ryan had seen his fair share of celestial phenomena, but nothing like this. The object was enormous, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly metallic sheen that reflected the city lights below. It didn't look natural. It looked deliberate. Down on the streets, chaos was beginning to unfold. Car horns blared as drivers abandoned their vehicles, spilling out onto the sidewalks to join the growing crowds pointing skyward. Children cried, tugging at their parents' sleeves, while others held up their phones, trying to capture the moment on camera. Social media was already exploding with videos and theories, ranging from government experiments to divine intervention. But Ryan knew better. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't human-made. Claire Dawson pushed her way through the throng of people, her notebook clutched tightly in one hand and a pen in the other. She was a journalist, always chasing the next big story, but this was beyond anything she'd ever imagined. Her dark hair whipped around her face in the cool night breeze as she scanned the crowd, searching for someone who might have answers or at least a good quote. "Excuse me," she called out, approaching a man in a business suit who was staring, slack-jawed at the sky. "What do you think it is?" The man turned to her, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I don't know," he stammered. "An alien spaceship. God help us all." Claire scribbled down his words before moving on. Alien spaceship, that seemed to be the consensus among the crowd. And honestly, she couldn't think of any other explanation either. The sheer size of the object defied logic. It stretched across the sky like a second moon, its edges jagged and uneven, as if it had been pieced together from fragments of some ancient cosmic debris. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. The sound grew louder, deeper, until it felt like it was pressing against their chests. Claire stumbled backward, nearly dropping her notebook. Around her, people covered their ears, shouting in confusion and fear. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the noise stopped. A single beam of light shot down from the belly of the ship, illuminating the heart of Times Square. The crowd gasped collectively as a holographic image materialized in the air. Towering figure with elongated limbs and a smooth insectoid body. Its eyes glowed a piercing red, scanning the sea of faces below. For a moment, there was silence, save for the faint rustling of wind. Then the creature spoke, or rather, its voice boomed inside everyone's minds, bypassing language entirely. "Your planet is ours," it declared, each word resonating with an eerie finality. "Resistance is futile." Panic erupted. People screamed, running in every direction, as the reality of the situation sank in. This wasn't a movie or a dream. This was real. Aliens had come, and they weren't here to make friends. Ryan tore his gaze away from the spectacle long enough to glance at his phone. Already, news outlets were buzzing with updates. Scientists were scrambling to analyze the ship, politicians were issuing statements, and conspiracy theorists were spinning wild tales. But none of that mattered right now. What mattered was figuring out why they were here and what they wanted. He hurried back inside his apartment, flipping open his laptop and pulling up satellite data. If anyone could find answers, it was him. He zoomed in on the ship, studying its structure, looking for patterns or weaknesses. Something about it felt off. Despite its overwhelming presence, There was a strange hesitation in its movements, as though it were unsure of itself. Claire, meanwhile, found herself drawn to the edge of the crowd, where a group of teenagers stood filming the scene with their phones. One of them, a girl with bright pink hair, caught her attention. "Do you think they're gonna kill us?" the girl asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Claire admitted, "but I'm going to find out." She jotted down the girls. Namely, Lan promised to keep her updated. Stories like this didn't just write themselves. They came from the people living them. Back on the rooftop, Ryan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the railing. He couldn't shake the feeling that this invasion wasn't what it seemed. Yes, the aliens were powerful, maybe even unstoppable, but there was something else at play here, something hidden beneath the surface. And whatever it was, Ryan was determined to uncover it. As the hours ticked by, the city remained bathed in the unnatural glow of the alien ship. Sleep eluded both Ryan and Claire, their minds consumed by questions without answers. Little did they know, the events of this night would set into motion a chain reaction that would change the course of human history forever. The next morning, the world woke up to a sky still dominated by the alien ship. Its shadow stretched across continents, casting entire cities into an eerie twilight. News stations broadcast non-stop coverage, showing images of the massive vessel. From every angle, people gathered in living rooms, offices, and public squares, glued to their screens, as experts debated what might happen next. For Ryan Carter, however, the wait was unbearable. He spent hours at his laptop, analyzing data, and poring over satellite images, searching for any clue about the invaders' intentions. Claire Dawson didn't sleep either. She sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by scribbled notes and half-empty coffee cups, trying to make sense of the chaos. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from colleagues, sources, and even strangers, desperate for answers. But one message stood out, a tip from a retired astronaut named Dr. Alan Hayes. He claimed he had information about past extraterrestrial encounters. Information that could shed light on why these aliens were here now. Claire jotted down his number and promised herself she'd call him later. By midday, the aliens made their move. Another beam of light descended, this time landing near the United Nations headquarters in New York City. Out stepped three towering figures, their insectoid forms glinting under the sun's weak rays. They moved with deliberate slowness, their elongated limbs clicking softly against the pavement. Behind them trailed smaller drones, hovering silently like mechanical insects. The crowd that had gathered gasped in awe, some people taking pictures, while others backed away in fear. Inside the UN building, world leaders convened for an emergency meeting. The aliens calling themselves the Valith had requested negotiations. Ryan watched the live stream intently, his brow furrowed as he studied their body language. Despite their imposing appearance, there was something oddly cautious about them. Their glowing red eyes darted around the room, scanning faces but never lingering too long. It was as if they were studying humanity, trying to understand perhaps control it. The lead Valith spoke first, its voice echoing directly into everyone's minds. "We are the Valith," it began, its tone calm, yet authoritative. "Your species has reached a critical point. You squander resources, wage wars, and poison your environment. Your survival is unsustainable. We offer you a choice. Surrender your planet to us, or face extinction." The room erupted in murmurs. Some delegates looked terrified, while others clenched their fists in defiance. A representative from France stood up, his voice shaking but firm. "Why should we trust you? What proof do you have that you're better than us?" The Valith tilted its head, almost as if amused. "Proof," it repeated. "Look to the stars. Countless civilizations have fallen before us. None resisted, none survived." Ryan leaned closer to his screen, his pulse quickening. There was something off about the way the Valith spoke, not just its words, but the hesitation behind them. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. These creatures weren't just conquerors. They were observers, gathering information with every interaction. And that meant they weren't invincible. Meanwhile, Claire decided it was time to follow up on Dr. Hayes' tip. She drove to his secluded cabin outside the city, her car winding through dense forests until she reached a small wooden house nestled among the trees. Dr. Hayes greeted her at the door, his silver hair unkempt and his glasses perched precariously on his nose. He ushered her inside, where stacks of books and papers cluttered every surface. "I've been expecting someone like you," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "You're not the first journalist to come knocking after an alien invasion." Claire smiled nervously. "I'm guessing I won't be the last either. So, what do you know?" Dr. Hayes sighed, pulling out a dusty folder from beneath a pile of papers. "Decades ago, when I was still active in space research, we intercepted signals from deep space. At first, we thought they were random bursts of energy, but then patterns emerged, patterns that suggested communication. Over time, we pieced together fragments of stories accounts from other planets that had been visited by the Valith." "What happened to those planets?" Claire asked, her pen poised over her notebook. "They vanished," Dr. Hayes replied, grimly. "Entire civilizations wiped out within weeks. No survivors, no explanations, just silence." Claire felt a chill run down her spine. "And Earth? Why haven't they attacked yet?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Dr. Hayes leaned back in his chair, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "Maybe they're testing us. Maybe they see something different here, something they can't quite figure out." Back in New York, tensions continued to rise. Protesters gathered outside the UN building, holding signs that read, "Earth will fight and no surrender." Among them was Daniel Brooks, a former Marine who had seen his share of battles. His jaw was set in determination as he addressed the crowd, urging them to stand united against the invaders. "We've faced enemies before," he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "But this is our home. If we don't fight for it, who will?" Nearby, Emma Lewis listened intently, her fingers flying across the keyboard of her laptop. A tech-savvy college dropout, Emma had already hacked into several of the Valith's communication channels, though most of the data was encrypted. Still, she managed to extract snippets of code that hinted at their plans. One phrase kept appearing over and over again: "Beware the song." Emma frowned, tapping her pen against her lips. What did it mean? Was it a warning, a threat, or something else entirely? She decided to dig deeper, knowing that whatever it was, it could be the key to stopping the Valith. As night fell, Ryan found himself back on his rooftop, staring up at the alien ship. The city below was quieter now, the initial panic giving way to a tense uncertainty. Lights flickered in windows, and the hum of distant sirens echoed through the streets. He couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was being tested, not just physically, but emotionally. The Valith seemed fascinated by human behavior, almost as if they were studying it. Ryan pulled out his phone and dialed Claire's number. When she answered, her voice was weary but alert. "Any luck with your research?" he asked. "Some," she admitted. "I met with Dr. Hayes. He says the Valith have destroyed countless planets, but none like Earth. Something's different here." "Different how?" Ryan pressed. "I don't know yet," Claire replied, "but I think it has something to do with us, with who we are as a species." Ryan nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "I've noticed something too. They're watching us, learning. That hesitation, they're not sure what to make of us." Claire paused, considering his words. "Then maybe that's our advantage. If we can figure out what makes us unique, maybe we can turn it against them." For the first time since the invasion began, Ryan allowed himself a small smile. "Let's hope so," he said, "because if we don't, this planet won't stand a chance." As they ended the call, both knew the road ahead would be dangerous. But somewhere deep down, they also knew that humanity had always thrived in the face of adversity. Whatever the Valith feared about Earth, it was up to the millions of others to find out why. By the third day of the invasion, the world had changed. Cities that once buzzed with life now felt hollow, their streets empty except for scattered groups of people huddled together in fear or defiance. The Valith's ship still loomed overhead, a constant reminder of humanity's vulnerability. But beneath the surface, something was stirring. Resistance was forming in Chicago. Daniel Brooks stood in the dimly lit basement of an abandoned warehouse, addressing a group of volunteers who had answered his call to action. The room smelled of damp concrete and rust, but no one seemed to care. They were here for one reason: to fight back. Daniel paced back and forth, his boots scuffing against the cracked floor as he spoke. "We can't let them take our planet," he said, his voice steady but firm. "They think we're weak because we're divided, but they don't know us. We've faced wars, disasters, pandemics, and we're still standing. That's our strength." The crowd murmured in agreement, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Among them was Emma Lewis, her laptop open on a makeshift table. She had joined Daniel's group after realizing that hacking into the Valith's systems wasn't enough. She needed allies on the ground. Together, they began organizing guerrilla targeted strikes designed to disrupt the invaders without drawing too much attention. Emma leaned forward, typing furiously as she decrypted another piece of alien code. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, her eyes scanning lines of text that made little sense to anyone else. But Emma saw patterns where others saw chaos, and this time, she found something important. "Listen up," she said, raising her voice to get everyone's attention. "I've been digging through their communications, and I found something strange. Every time there's a surge of human activity, protests, music festivals, anything, they react. Their ships vibrate, like they single quotes uncomfortable." Daniel frowned, crossing his arms. "What are you saying? That they hate parties?" Emma shook her head, pushing her glasses up the bridge of her nose. "Not exactly. It's more than that. I think they're sensitive to certain frequencies, sounds, emotions, maybe even energy. Whatever it is, it affects them." Claire Dawson arrived later that evening, having driven straight from New York after speaking with Dr. Hayes. She carried a backpack filled with notes and recordings, her mind racing with possibilities. When she entered the warehouse, the air was thick with determination. People nodded respectfully as she passed, recognizing her from her articles. Claire approached Daniel and Emma, pulling out a notebook. "I've been talking to survivors of past invasions," she explained. "People who lived on planets that were attacked by the Valith before Earth. They all mentioned one thing: silence. After the invasion, there was nothing left, not even ruins, just emptiness." Emma tilted her head, intrigued. "So they don't just destroy, they erase." "Exactly," Claire replied. "But why? What's the point of wiping out entire civilizations if they're not using the planets afterward?" Daniel stepped closer, his expression grim. "Maybe they're not interested in resources. Maybe they're harvesting something else, something intangible." Emma snapped her fingers, her eyes lighting up. "That's it. They're feeding off despair. Think about it, every civilization they've attacked fell apart because of war, greed, corruption, all the things that make people lose hope. That's what they thrive on." Claire nodded slowly, connecting the dots. "And Earth is different. Despite everything, humanity keeps bouncing back. We find joy in the smallest things: a song, a laugh, a sunset. Maybe that's what scares them." Daniel clenched his fists, resolve hardening in his chest. "Then we use that against them. If they feed on despair, we give them hope instead. We show them that we won't break." Over the next few days, the resistance spread like wildfire. In Los Angeles, Graffiti artists painted murals of unity and resilience on crumbling walls. In London, musicians organized impromptu concerts in the streets, drawing crowds that sang along despite the looming threat above. In Tokyo, children released paper cranes into the sky, each one carrying messages of peace and courage. Ryan Carter monitored these events from his apartment, tracking social media posts and news reports. He noticed a pattern. Wherever acts of kindness and creativity emerged, the Valith's drones became erratic, their movements jerky and unpredictable. It was subtle, but undeniable. Humanity's spirit was throwing them off balance. One night, Ryan received a message from Claire. "We're on to something," she wrote. "Meet us in Chicago." He packed his laptop and a few essentials, then drove through the darkened highways until he reached the city. When he arrived at the warehouse, he was greeted by a scene of quiet determination. Maps covered the walls, marked with red circles, indicating areas of high alien activity. Weapons mostly improvised were stacked in corners, and volunteers moved about, preparing for whatever came next. "Ryan," Daniel said, shaking his hand firmly. "Good to have you here. We need your brain power." Ryan nodded, setting up his laptop alongside Emma's. Together, they worked late into the night, analyzing data and brainstorming strategies. By morning, they had a plan. "We hit them where it hurts," Daniel announced to the group. "Their reliance on despair. We organize a massive event, something that brings people together. Music, art, laughter, all the things they can't stand." Emma grinned, already typing away. "Leave it to me. I'll hack into every broadcast channel and stream it worldwide. Let the whole planet see what we're made of." Claire scribbled notes furiously, planning how to document the event for future generations. "This isn't just about winning," she said. "It's about showing them and ourselves that we're stronger than they think." As the days passed, preparations intensified. Flyers appeared in cities around the globe, calling for people to gather in Central Park for a concert unlike any other. Musicians volunteered their talents, engineers rigged sound systems, and ordinary citizens pitched in however they could. Word spread rapidly, fueled by hope and desperation. On the day of the event, millions turned out, filling the park to capacity and spilling onto surrounding streets. Screens erected throughout the city displayed live footage, ensuring no one missed a moment. As the first notes of music rang out, a collective cheer rose into the air, echoing across the CITYSCAPE. Above, the Valith's ship shuddered. Its sleek surface rippled as if struck by an invisible force. Inside, the creatures stirred uneasily, their glowing eyes narrowing in confusion. For the first time since their arrival, they seemed unsure. Below, Ryan watched with a mixture of awe and relief. This was humanity's true power, not weapons or technology, but the unbreakable bonds of community and spirit. The Valith might have come to conquer, but they hadn't counted on one thing. Earth wasn't just a planet, it was home, and its people would do anything to protect it. The concert in Central Park was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Musicians from every corner of the globe came together, their instruments blending into a symphony of sound that transcended language and culture. Drums pounded like heartbeats, guitars wailed with raw emotion, and voices rose in harmony, carrying messages of hope and defiance. The crowd swayed as one, united by the music that filled the air. It wasn't just a performance, it was a declaration, a reminder to the Valith and to themselves that humanity would not be silenced. Emma Lewis sat cross-legged on a makeshift stage, her laptop glowing softly in the dim light. She had hacked into every available broadcast channel, ensuring the event reached even the most remote corners of the planet. Screens flickered to life in living rooms, public squares, and refugee camps, showing images of people dancing, singing, and laughing. For the first time since the invasion began, the world felt alive again. Emma's fingers flew across the keyboard, monitoring the feed, while keeping an eye on the alien ship hovering ominously above. Ryan Carter stood nearby, his arms crossed as he watched the spectacle unfold. He couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was humanity at its best, creative, resilient, unyielding. But he also knew they were playing a dangerous game. The Valith weren't just passive observers, they were reacting. Their ship vibrated, faintly, its surface rippling as if disturbed by an unseen force. Ryan pulled out his phone, snapping photos and recording video. Whatever happened next, he wanted evidence. Claire Dawson moved through the crowd, her notebook in hand, capturing stories from those who had gathered. She spoke with a young mother, holding her child close, tears streaming down her face as she sang along to a familiar melody. She interviewed an elderly man who had traveled hundreds of miles to attend, saying it reminded him of protests he'd joined decades ago. Each story added another layer to the tapestry of resistance, proof that humanity wouldn't go quietly into the night. Above them, the Valith's reaction grew more pronounced. Drones darted erratically around the edges of the park, their movements jerky and unpredictable. The lead ship emitted a low hum, growing louder until it seemed to press against everyone's ears. People winced but didn't stop. If anything, the music grew louder, more defiant. A band launched into a powerful anthem, its lyrics urging listeners to stand tall in the face of fear. The crowd roared in approval, their cheers drowning out the alien noise. Daniel Brooks stood at the edge of the stage, his jaw clenched as he scanned the skies. He had expected retaliation, but so far, the Valith hadn't made a direct move. Still, he knew better than to let his guard down. "Stay sharp," he muttered to a group of volunteers nearby. "This isn't over yet." As the final notes of the concert faded into the night, something extraordinary happened. The Valith's ship shuddered violently, its metallic surface cracking in places. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the vessel might collapse entirely. Then, with a deafening roar, it stabilized, retreating slightly higher into the atmosphere. The drones scattered, disappearing into the darkness. Cheers erupted from the crowd, a tidal wave of relief and triumph washing over them. Strangers hugged, strangers cried, and strangers promised to keep fighting. Claire jotted down the scene, her pen moving furiously across the page. This was history in the making, a turning point that would be remembered for generations. But Ryan wasn't celebrating just yet. He approached Emma, his brow furrowed. "Did you see that? The way their ship reacted?" Emma nodded, her eyes still glued to her laptop screen. "Yeah, it's like the sound waves disrupted their systems. Maybe we can use that to our advantage." "Exactly," Ryan said, excitement creeping into his voice. "If we can amplify those frequencies, maybe we can drive them away completely." Claire overheard their conversation and joined in. "There's something else too. Remember what Dr. Hayes said about Earth's unique frequency? What if it's not just sound? What if it's us, our emotions, our connections, everything that makes us human?" Ryan thought about it, rubbing his chin. "It's possible. The Valith thrive on despair, but they're vulnerable to hope. If we can harness that energy, channel it somehow, we could turn the tide," Daniel finished, stepping closer. "But how do we do it on a global scale? We can't organize concerts everywhere." Emma tapped a key on her laptop, pulling up a map of the world. "We don't need to. Look at this." She pointed 2 clusters of red dots scattered across continents. "These are areas where people have already started resisting small acts of rebellion, creative protests, anything that spreads positivity. If we connect these movements, create a network, we can amplify Earth's natural rhythm." Ryan's eyes lit up, like a heartbeat. "The planet has its own electromagnetic field, right? What if we build something that syncs with it, amplifying the frequencies that affect the Valith?" "It's risky," Claire warned. "Messing with Earth's magnetic field could have unintended consequences." But it's worth trying, Emma insisted. We've got nothing to lose. Over the next few days, the Resistance worked tirelessly to bring the plan to life. Engineers, scientists, and ordinary citizens collaborated, pooling resources and expertise. Factories repurposed old equipment, workshops buzzed with activity, and volunteers transported materials across borders. At the center of it all was Ryan, leading the design of a device capable of amplifying Earth's natural frequencies. He called it the Resonance Amplifier. Meanwhile, Claire documented every step, ensuring the world stayed informed. Her articles spread like wildfire, inspiring others to join the cause. In Tokyo, students held candlelight vigils. In Paris, artists painted murals depicting unity and strength. In Rio de Janeiro, dancers performed in the streets, their movements synchronized with the beat of drums. Each act contributed to the growing wave of hope that pulsed across the planet. Daniel coordinated efforts on the ground, organizing supply chains and securing safe houses for those working on the project. He also kept a close eye on the Valith, monitoring their movements and preparing for the worst. "They're watching us," he told the team during a late-night meeting. "We've shown them we're not afraid, but they won't back down without a fight." Emma nodded, her expression serious. "Which means we'll have to hit them hard. Once the amplifier is ready, we'll need to protect it at all costs." Ryan ran simulations on his laptop, tweaking the design to maximize efficiency. "If we get this right, it could push them out of orbit, but we only have one shot." As the pieces fell into place, the stakes grew higher. Intelligence leaks revealed that the Valith were planning a counterattack, targeting key locations involved in the Resistance. Time was running out. On the eve of the operation, the team gathered in a hidden facility outside Chicago, where the resonance amplifier had been assembled. It was a massive machine, resembling a satellite dish surrounded by coils and wires. Ryan explained how it worked, his voice steady, despite the weight of the moment. "When we activate it, it'll sync with Earth's magnetic field and broadcast amplified frequencies. The Valith won't be able to handle it. They'll have to leave or risk being destroyed." Daniel placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Then let's make sure they leave." Claire looked around at the group, her heart swelling with pride. These were ordinary people, scientists, soldiers, hackers, journalists, but together, they had become something extraordinary. They were humanity's last stand, and they weren't going to fail. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden light across the landscape, the team prepared for the final phase of their plan. The Valith's ship loomed overhead, a dark shadow against the brightening sky. Somewhere, deep within its core, the invaders waited, unaware of what was coming. Humanity had faced countless challenges throughout history, but this was different. This was survival not just for themselves, but for everything that made Earth special, and now, they were ready to fight back. The morning of the operation dawned cold and clear, the kind of day that felt too quiet to be real. The air was heavy with anticipation, as if the entire planet were holding its breath. Inside the hidden facility, outside Chicago, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Ryan Carter double-checked the resonance amplifier one last time, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted a final wire. He glanced at the others, Daniel Brooks pacing near the entrance, Emma Lewis typing furiously on her laptop, and Claire Dawson jotting down notes with an unsteady hand. They all knew what was at stake. "Are we ready?" Daniel asked, his voice low but firm. His eyes scanned the room, meeting each person's gaze in turn. "There was no turning back now. As ready as we'll ever be," Ryan replied, stepping away from the machine. "Once we activate it, there's no stopping. Either it works, or—" He didn't finish the sentence. No one needed him to. Failure wasn't an option, not when the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Emma closed her laptop and stood up, brushing strands of hair out of her face. "I've rerouted every available signal to boost the amplifier's range. If this works, the frequencies will reach even the most remote parts of the planet. Claire nodded, clutching her notebook tightly. And I've sent out alerts to resistance groups worldwide. They're standing by, ready to spread the word and keep people safe. Daniel took a deep breath, his jaw tightening. Good, let's do this. As the team prepared for activation, chaos erupted elsewhere. The Valeth had launched a massive assault on key locations tied to the resistance. In New York, drones descended upon Times Square, firing beams of energy that shattered windows and sent panicked crowds fleeing. In Los Angeles, streets filled with smoke as alien forces clashed with guerrilla fighters. Across the globe, cities burned, but the resistance held strong, buying precious time for the operation to succeed. Back at the facility, the ground shook as distant explosions echoed through the air. Emma frowned, pulling up live feeds on her laptop. They're targeting us next, she said, her voice tight with urgency. We've got maybe 10 minutes before they find us. Ryan's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. Then, we move faster. He turned to Daniel. Get everyone into position. We activate the amplifier now. Daniel gave a sharp nod and barked orders to the volunteers stationed around the building. Armed guards took their posts near the exits, while others secured the perimeter. Inside, Ryan flipped switches and entered commands, bringing the resonance amplifier online. The machine hummed softly at first, then louder, its coils vibrating with increasing intensity. A faint blue glow emanated from its core, pulsing like a heartbeat. Claire stepped closer, watching the display screen as data streamed across it. It's syncing with Earth's magnetic field, she whispered, awe creeping into her voice. It's working. But the Valeth weren't about to let them finish. Within minutes, the sound of engines roared overhead, and shadows fell across the facility as alien ships descended. Laser fire raked the roof, sending chunks of concrete crashing to the floor. Alarms blared, and shouts rang out as defenders scrambled to hold the line. We can't stop now, Ryan shouted over the noise, his fingers flying across the control panel. We're almost there. Emma joined him, her face pale, but determined. I'm rerouting power from auxiliary systems. It'll give us a few extra seconds. Outside, Daniel led the fight, shouting encouragement to his team as they exchanged fire with the invaders. Bullets ricocheted off metallic but the humans fought with everything they had. Improvised weapons, sheer determination, and the knowledge that failure meant extinction. One by one, volunteers fell, but their sacrifice bought precious moments for those inside. You need more time. Daniel yelled into his radio, ducking behind cover as another blast tore through the wall. Hold them off. Inside, the amplifier reached critical levels. The blue glow intensified, bathing the room in an eerie light. Ryan hesitated for a split second, then slammed his fist down on the activation button. Now, the machine roared to life, emitting a sound so deep and resonant, it seemed to vibrate through their very bones. Outside, the effect was immediate. The Valeth's ships shuddered violently, their sleek surfaces cracking under the strain. Drones spiraled out of control, crashing to the ground in fiery explosions. Even the lead ship, once an immovable monolith in the sky, began to falter. There, retreating, Emma exclaimed, her voice breaking with relief. She pointed to the monitor, where real-time footage showed the alien fleet pulling back. It's working, but the victory came at a cost. Explosions rocked the facility as the Valeth redoubled their efforts, desperate to destroy the source of the disruption. Beams of energy tore through walls, and the ceiling caved in, raining debris onto the floor below. Ryan shielded the amplifier with his body, refusing to let anything damage it. Go, he shouted to the others. Get out of here. Claire grabbed Emma's arm, dragging her toward the exit. We can't leave you. I'll follow, Ryan insisted, his voice strained but resolute. Just go. Reluctantly, they obeyed, sprinting through the collapsing building as Daniel covered their escape. Outside, the remaining defenders regrouped, forming a protective circle around the fleeing civilians. Gunfire echoed in the distance, but the tide had turned. The Valith were withdrawing, their once unstoppable force crumbling under the weight of Earth's amplified frequencies as the last of the ships disappeared into the horizon. Silence fell over the battlefield. Smoke curled into the sky, and the acrid smell of burnt metal lingered in the air. Survivors emerged from hiding, their faces streaked with dirt and tears. Some cheered, others collapsed in exhaustion, but all shared a sense of profound relief. Daniel staggered back into the facility, coughing as he searched for Ryan. He found him slumped against the amplifier, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. But alive. "You did it," Daniel said, helping him to his feet. "You saved us." Ryan shook his head, his expression grim. "Not me. All of us. Humanity did this." By nightfall, news of the victory spread across the globe. People poured into the streets, celebrating not just survival, but triumph. Fires still burned in some cities, and the scars of battle would take years to heal, but hope had returned. The Valith were gone for no end. Earth belonged to its people once more. Claire sat alone in a quiet corner of the facility, writing furiously in her notebook. Her pen moved steadily across the page, capturing the essence of what had happened. This wasn't just a story of war. It was a testament to resilience, creativity, and unity. It was proof that even in the darkest moments, humanity could rise. Above, Emma approached her, sitting down beside her. "What are you writing?" "A reminder," Claire replied, smiling faintly. "For anyone who doubts us. For anyone who forgets why we won." Far above, the stars twinkled brightly, untouched by the chaos below. Somewhere among them, the Valith retreated, their mission unfinished. But they carried with them a lesson, one they would never forget. Earth wasn't just another planet to conquer. It was something far greater, something they couldn't understand, and now they knew why no invader ever returned from Earth.